everyone, I'm Venetia. From November 2020 until July 2021, 93 of us at St James's embarked together on an online pilgrimage in a pandemic, which we called Camino Companions. As part of this, we recorded short videos of some of our pilgrims speaking on particular topics. Here is Claire speaking on the topic of God's dream for me.
Beginning, it would be at St John's Anglican Church in Flixton, where I was baptised and confirmed. I grew up there, and if there were boring bits, there are also a lot of happy memories and friends, good friends. I have a lot of happy memories of childhood, and we were much loved, but it wasn't idyllic. Our dad died suddenly when I was 9, and a few months later, our mum discovered that she had breast cancer, although as children, we didn't know this at the time. It wasn't at all easy for our mum, but despite health and other worries, she was determined to see us through school and university and almost made it. We never really talked about faith, but church was important to her, and I think it made a difference. I hope so. She'll always be my number one hero. I struggled to come to terms with my dad's death. Life felt dangerous, and there were times when I was overwhelmed with fear. I clung to belief in heaven and in God, but it was difficult. Then somewhere along the way, and it happened quite gradually with the occasional moments of absolute connection with God, God was just there and is here. Our mum's death was devastating, but this time God was with me. I just left university and hadn't got any idea what I wanted to do, but a cousin of mine had been doing some nursing and it felt like something very real and practical. So I started my nurse training in London. I tried a lot of churches at that time, evangelical Anglican, Methodist and Baptist. And they were good churches, communities, but I never really felt part of them. I'm the world's worst networker, so some of that was down to me. But there was also something about relevance. At the time, I was fairly definite about women's equality and still am. Was working out my sexuality and had seen a lot and experienced a bit of how difficult life could be for some people. Something just didn't add up. For a lot of reasons, I ended up working with a community project around Gracias in Honduras. We worked with 60 villages in one of the poorest areas of one of the poorest countries in Latin America. Life for the campesinos as subsistence farmers was and still is hard. Grinding poverty, high maternal and infant mortality rates, malnutrition, and so on. The project, which was linked to the Catholic Church, had its roots in liberation theology, which for the people belonging to the project meant believing in a Jesus who loved them, who walked with them and was with them in their struggles, was angry at the injustices they faced and was with them as they worked together in their communities to improve their lot and demand a better life for everyone. Instead of a fatalistic outlook focusing only on salvation in the world to come, it was okay to want salvation in this one too. Sitting in an adobe church in the mountains, listening to one of the delegates of the word talk about this Jesus, it was a Jesus I recognized and felt at home with. Whilst I was in Honduras, I met some amazing people, leaders, and was inspired by numerous examples of community support and action. People who were normally marginalized and looked down on had been given a voice and a say in what happened to them. There was also a lot of friendship and laughter. When I returned to the UK, I didn't lose my faith, but I struggled to find a church for all the reasons I talked about before I went to Honduras, and after a while, almost stopped trying. I still prayed, and in times of trouble, God was absolutely still there, but most of the time was fenced off a bit from everyday life. Then about 10 years ago, I started art classes, and the art classes changed the way I looked at the world. I noticed things more, noticed the seasons, nature, the ways the colours changed, and so on. And inevitably, I became more aware of God more of the time, and we talked more. About 6 years ago, I ended up at St James's, and somehow it felt very right. It feels very right to be part of a church community, and of this church community in particular. I retired from the NHS a couple of years ago. Too many meetings, spreadsheets, and business cases. a comfortable existence, but time for a change. Last year, I did a TEFL course and I'm taking baby steps in the world of education. I also read James Martin's book, Jesus, and reconnected with the Jesus I got to know in Honduras. But for now, I am waiting in that strange land between hope and fear and praying.